AI agent is the real developer now. And all of these old protocols were purpose built for humans, but not for AI agents.
Welcome to Agentic Edge, where we explore the frontier of AI agents, enterprise orchestration, and the architectures that are shaping tomorrow's intelligent enterprises. My name is Micah Smith, and in every episode, we pull back the curtain on the people, the decisions, the technologies behind Automation Anywhere's journey towards enabling our customers to be successful with agentic process automation. Today, we are talking about something that sounds a little nerdy on the surface, agent interoperability protocols, but stay with me because these protocols make possible what could change the way that we think about building, scaling, and orchestrating automation across the enterprise. Specifically, we're going to be deep diving into two standards, MCP, the Model Context Protocol, and A2A, the Agent-to-Agent Protocol. Now, if we believe in a future where agents are goal-oriented and autonomous, then they need tools to use and they need to be able to talk to each other. Thankfully, I'm joined by two people who've been at the center of how Automation Anywhere is defining and putting together these protocols into action. Rajendra and Ramana. Rajendra is a product manager here at Automation Anywhere, responsible for our MCP server as well as our generative recorder feature, which enables unattended automations to intelligently recover from changing user interfaces. We're also joined by Ramana, who's an executive engineering leader who's responsible for our AI-powered document automation product, as well as our new MCP server and A2A integration. Gentlemen, great to have both of you here. Before we dive into these agentic protocols, I want to start with a question that I have asked every guest so far, because I think it really sets the stage for why agentic protocols even matter. And the question is, how do you define an AI agent?
So, if you ask me, Micah, AI agents are an intelligent entity that can accept a user goal and then they can use tools to achieve that user goal with varying degree of autonomy. That's my short and sweet definition of AI agent.
I
Yeah.
like it. Short and to the point. Ramana, what do you
Yeah.
think
And
about
I'll go from the bottom up. In my view, agents are simply LLM calls running in the loop, trying to break down a goal into tasks and then executing the task leading to achieving a goal. That's what it
Okay,
is.
so it's one part knowledge and it's always one part action, it sounds like, from both of you, right?
Yeah.
So, with that grounded definition of an agent in mind, I want to start with the problem. We have orchestrated processes, we have automations, we now have AI agents. Why do we even need protocols in the agentic space? Don't we have enough protocols already in the world? Why do we need more of them? RV, I want to start with you.
Sure, yeah. Totally agree, Micah. There have been tons of protocols. But the problem was all of these protocols were built for a world wherein humans were in the driver's seat. So you had these developers who would go through the documentation, understand, say, for example, REST API calls, REST protocol. You'll understand the endpoints, definitions, input, output. But here we have AI agents who are making the decisions now. AI agent is the real developer now. And all of these old protocols were purpose built for humans, but not for AI agents. For AI agents, you need these specialized protocols such as MCP and A2A that you just talked about, which are going to help these AI agents achieve the user goal with the varying degree of autonomy.
Ramana,
Yeah.
there's no shortage of acronyms when it comes to engineering and protocols.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your perspective here.
Yeah. Hey, I look at the natural evolution of, there is pre-LLM and then there is post-LLM. In the early days of LLM, we learned very quickly that LLM is very good in terms of text, wordsmithing an email, chatting like humans, summarizing an article, and so on. But when we try to get LLMs to actually do stuff, we found out that it's not very straightforward. For example, doing stuff like getting data from your data sources, calling APIs, doing search, and so on. Not only that, if I, as a developer, trying to build M applications, and then trying to integrate with n different tools and APIs in that process, this led to m times n problem. And that led to many of our forward thinking developers thinking about how do I build common integrations that any of my app can reuse? That is the birth of these interoperability protocols.
Okay, so we've established the need and the pain point here, but let's start to break down some of the protocols themselves. And I'm going to start with MCP. We maybe have jumped the gun here in that we've mentioned MCP several times. I did give the definition of the acronym, but what is it and where did it actually come from? Because we want to establish a fair understanding of a lot of these terms so we can really understand why this is so important for a platform that does agentic orchestration like Automation Anywhere to implement. Is it simply a standard of tools? Is it APIs? Is it automations? What is MCP?
Yeah, let me take that. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, Micah, as you defined earlier. And this was an open protocol proposed by Anthropic at the end of 2024. And within a very short span of time, it has got huge adoption. What it does is it introduces standardization in the way these AI agents discover and connect with these third party tools, systems, and other AI agents. So, as Ramana just explained, before MCP, you had to go for custom integration for all different systems that you wanted to connect to. With MCP, you have a common standard wherein everyone speaks the same language, and your AI agents can naturally and easily discover the right tool to call to help users achieve their goals.
Yeah, it's like a building block for your AI applications. So if you wanted to AI application to do something, and if you want to integrate with the ecosystem of tools and plugins, MCP provides a way instead of doing M times and M plus N way of doing things, where you have this common protocol that are standardized way of plugging into these tools and data sources. And that's what MCP is all about.
I think of this a lot like Lego, right? Where there's the standard building block that's like a, I don't know, 2 by 3 or something like that. But they always have the exact same hole spacing. So while there's all these other weird shapes that ultimately end up being Lego pieces, the standardization is always around the spacing between holes and the way that these things can all plug together. Is that similar to what we're talking about here with MCP?
And I would take it one step further. MCP often is described as a USB-C for protocols, and it's exactly like you pointed out. It allows us to connect to any of our devices using a standard protocol, such as USB-C.
Part of the definition of MCP is context, right? Why is context so critical for these integrations to actually be usable by agents?
Without context, your AI agents are just looking at APIs, and this is not going to be a blind API call. Your AI agents need to know what all capabilities your tools have got, what kind of inputs do they accept, how to use those, and all of this is coming through the context, which is what MCP provides, or A2A in case of AI agents, agent to agent interaction A2A provides. So that's where context helps. Without context, all you have is the lots and lots of function calls that are available, but AI agents do not know when to call what. And that's where it helps.
Let me take that one step further using a concrete example. So let's say I'm building an HR agent. And in this case, I'm trying to understand what is the time off that I have left. And I wanted to schedule a time off next week for an upcoming, holiday. So in this situation, there could be multiple agents. There could be an agent that fetches time off from a HR system of record. And then there could be an agent that actually schedules time off for next week. Now, if we don't have context, the agent that fetches the time off information cannot pass on the information to the agent that actually schedules the time off. And then the agent that communicates back to you in terms of an overall HR agent. So this is where context becomes very important, and MCP can help us maintain this context.
Cool. So if I'm understanding you correctly, an agent has available tools to it, and MCP could be the protocol for which the agent is able to use those tools. Is that correct?
That's right.
RV, we've talked about what MCP is and kind of how it works. Talk to me about some of the customer use cases. How are people actually using this now that it's available within our platform?
What we have seen is all of our existing customers, they've already built all of these automations, bots, processes, API tasks, and now they are using those automations from their AI assistants. So, for example, interacting with CRM system, HRMS system, ITSM systems, they have lots of automations when they are using to pull opportunities from Salesforce. One of the customers was having this use case wherein they wanted to get those high potential opportunities from Salesforce and generate tailored communication for those opportunities. Here, the user could make a request using Microsoft Copilot, which is a third party AI assistant outside of Automation Anywhere system. When the request is generated, we are able to pull the right automation from Automation Anywhere system to say, get you a list of Q4 opportunities. From there, your AI assistant will be able to understand what are the high potential opportunities and go back to Automation Anywhere to generate the customized communication plan based on the previous interactions with the same customer. That could be one of the use cases, but we have lots of use cases wherein all of the existing automations that our customers have already built inside our platform, they can be reused as a part of these agentic workflows.
I like that. So, for customers who are largely right now stuck to scheduling processes and scheduling automations, this is a more mature way to think about exposing those capabilities and making them available across different teams and across different departments within the organization. Going back to what he just described there, where it's automatically finding the right automation, the right process, or the right agent to call. Where's the responsibility there? There's the Copilot or the AI assistant front end where it's calling the MCP server, which is exposing those automations. But which one is actually making the determination of which automation or which agent to actually call and execute?
Yeah, this is where the discovery part comes in, which is a very critical part of the MCP protocol. When you know client connects and asks the server, "Hey, what can you do?" and the server responds with a list of tools and resources in a very standard JSON schema that the LLM can then understand and then uses the intelligence in order to figure out the right API, the right input mapping, which leads to solving that particular task.
So when you say the LLM, that's on the AI assistant side as opposed to the MCP server side. Is that right?
That's right.
RB, the MCP protocol sounds awesome. The server sounds great. I don't do a great job at writing descriptions for my automations and for my processes. Does that mean I have to go back and write descriptions for all of these things before I can actually use this?
Or you don't really have to. We have our process reasoning engine, which can really help you here. What it does is it automatically understands each of the automations that you have got, that you've already built, generates the descriptions in the way that your LLMs or any of the third party AI assistants can intuitively understand. All of these descriptions that are being built, being generated by our process reasoning engine, are purpose built for AI agent consumption. So you don't really have to go and update your existing automations. Your developers, when they are building automations, they want to quickly get to the editor and start coding, start building. They don't want to describe the automation right in the very beginning, or once they've finished the automation, they would just want to push it to the production. So that's where pre comes in. It can intelligently and automatically generate all of these descriptions, which can be consumed by your third party AI assistants to invoke the right automation at the right time in the workflow.
Yeah. And then behind the scenes, what's happening is we have the metadata of any given automation, and we understand that in depth. We then match that with a list of similar automations to really understand what this automation is about and really save our admins and our developers from having to elaborately describe what that automation is about. And we do that work behind the scenes for our customers.
So the process reasoning engine that you're describing, or PRE, has been trained on anonymized metadata for millions of automation executions from places like our community edition. So it understands that relationship between the different packages that are being used and the different inputs and outputs that are being mapped and things like that. Is it able to automatically understand the required inputs for, let's say, an automation or a process, and also understand what is the output that should be expected using my AI assisted chat interface?
100%. It can also understand all of the variables, input variables, output parameters that you have, and then make those available again in the natural language to these AI assistants. So you don't really have to again do the hard coding, pre-programmed workflows. All of this can be figured out at runtime when the requests are coming from the users, when you are in the middle of the workflow, when you find out that, hey, I want to call this XYZ tool to extract data from my Salesforce or ServiceNow system. So right at the time, you can figure out these are some of the information or inputs that this tool is expecting from me, and this is what I'm going to get once the tool has finished running, so that I can use it in the downstream workflow.
In the context of building towards a more agentic future, Ramana, we talked to Charlie in a previous episode, and we talked about the importance of writing descriptions for all of the tools that an agent is going to use, and writing descriptions for all of the input and output variables that you're using for a tool that will show up for an agent. What other best practices or guidance would you give people who are thinking about what I can do today to build towards a more agentic future tomorrow, even if I don't have this MCP server in place yet and I'm not quite there? What are the things that I can be doing to work towards something that will be valuable for me in the future?
Yeah. I wouldn't absolve our developers and admins from not writing any description at all. An automation could mean something to a particular organization. It could be called differently to a particular, team. It's important to share that so that the agent or the LLM behind the scenes is intelligent enough to understand those and interpret it at the right time in the right way. And beyond that, I would recommend a few things. Number one, security. We talked about that earlier. So OAuth, authentication, authorization, managing that very securely is very important. Number two is modularization. So ability to write your automation in a more modular manner so that I call it skills. An automation could use multiple skills and stitch together in the age of agents to reach to a goal that you wanted to achieve. So modularization and then making it a little bit more standards compatible, understanding JSON input output will go a long way in terms of interoperability protocols and build agents becomes easier to reuse what you already have. These are some important things I would encourage our developers to get started today.
So, RV, what does MCP mean for reusability? Does this unlock some kind of modularity or some other way of doing things? A lot of our listeners probably already have some automations in place, but what does MCP mean for me if I'm just getting started with agents and I've got a bunch of automations in place already?
100%. So reusability and composability of these AI workflows is very much powered by MCP. For example, our existing customers can take all of their existing automations, and these automations can be used as a part of multiple AI agents or agentic workflows. You can have one MCP tool inside our platform that can be used by three different AI agents. And you do not really have to go for those deterministic workflows. You can just make these tools available to AI agents. These tools can be used only when they are needed. You bring composability in your workflow. At the same time, they can be invoked on the basis of a need that you have.
Ramana, I want to understand this technically a little bit more. What do you say to someone who says that MCP is just a fancy way of saying you have published an API? Because I could see that being a critique. I've got a bunch of these
Yeah.
APIs already. Why am I adding this MCP layer in front? What am I gaining here?
No, it's a very good question. This often comes up, and it's a right thing to compare MCPs to APIs, but I would say that MCP goes beyond just developing APIs. For example, discovery. MCP makes it very automatic and real time to discover APIs, whereas I have to manually code each and every API with the proper input and output. Now with MCP, I have one standard way for a natural language to understand the customer's ask and translate that into APIs. I'll give you another example in terms of setup and reusability. And I don't have to worry about understanding each and every part of the API, every API. So enterprise applications such as ServiceNow, Workday, Salesforce expose thousands of APIs. How is it humanly possible to comprehend all these APIs and understand the input and output? This is where MCP comes in. Companies like Salesforce and ServiceNow, they build MCP servers, which can really have the ability to discover based off of the customer's context and the question, and then pick the right APIs, understand the input, ask for the needed input, and translate that into response. Is a great way where MCP is built on top of all the available APIs and takes it one step further to make it easily available for humans to actually make use of it.
Got it. I think that helps. So, RV, we recently released MCP Server as a part of .39. Talk to me about what's included in that release and what that unlocks for people who are building agentic process automation solutions.
So some of the exciting improvements that we have brought is now any third-party AI assistant can securely trigger automation anywhere pods, processes, API tasks, etc. For example, you might have built something using Microsoft Copilot, or you are using, say, ChatGPT to trigger your agentic workflows, wherein users are just providing natural language instructions or they are assigning tasks to their AI agents. And those AI agents are triggering automations inside Automation Anywhere platform. Now, the unique thing about us is our integration is powered by our process reasoning engine, which has this deep semantic understanding of all of the automations, what these automations are capable of, what do they accept as an input, what kind of output they provide back to the caller program, how to use those. Because of this, all of these third party AI assistants can just fire their call, or they can share their intent in natural language, everyday English, and then our process reasoning engine can pull the right automation. Secondly, all of this is done in the context of enterprise deployment. So you have your authentication, authorization, security, privacy, governance, observability, all of that is taken care of when you are building your agentic workflows. These are two of the things that I would like to highlight.
Got it. I want to hear more about where this is going, but before we get to that, you said something about security. And I've heard the joke that the S in MCP stands for security. It's a bad joke, but one of the biggest critiques of the early MCP protocol definition is it seemed like proper authentication and identity management were kind of an afterthought. So, Ramana, I want to understand from your perspective, how does Automation Anywhere solution approach that?
Yeah. Anytime you build a software, you need to have that S in the security. It's something that we need to take account for it right from the beginning. And with Automation Anywhere, we built the agent interoperability platform with security first approach. And you talked about, what all things that I need to worry about. Pretty much anything that you worry about in terms of the LLMs and the security implications, we need to worry about with MCP as well. Basic things such as prompt injection, insecure plugin design. If you look at the OASP top 10, insecure output handling, training data, data poisoning issues, and so on. I'll give a couple of examples in here. How do I avoid content injection exploit? So if malicious instructions got injected into the MCP by way of input output handling, how do I handle that? This is something standard that we have to handle for any LLM applications. Similarly, supply chain adversaries, and another example that I wanted to give. What if an MCP server that you built is compromised through some public registries, and that resulted in corrupting the data between the caller and the server. How do I avoid that, right? So these are some of the things that we need to consider. Make sure that you implement authentication and authorization for each of the tools and each of the APIs that you do, and go with some standard or similar authentication types. So you ensure the security between the data transactions. Secondly, in terms of provenance tracking, make sure that there is an audit log of every prompt, every action, every tool. If you use our Automation Anywhere AI agent and MCP, tool calling, which is coming soon, you will notice that we log pretty much everything, the thinking, the reasoning, the input, the output, and so on. That gives you a very good audit of what's going on. And thirdly, isolation and sandboxing. For example, if I'm building an MCP server, Automation Anywhere exposed MCP server, we've made sure that it's completely secured, containerized, and there is no access to other host systems. And finally, centralized governance with our AI governance guardrails, we can detect PII, PHI, and mask them or completely one-way hash it before you send it to LLMs and so on. So these are some ways that I would suggest you secure your an application that uses MCP, both on the client or on the server side.
Yeah, I want to circle back on something that Ramana just mentioned because he talked about this concept of tool calling coming soon. And when we think about MCP from a platform perspective, I know that there's both inbound and outbound. I've also heard client and server before. Which of these is more important? How are they differentiated? What do they mean? What do people need as far as something running locally versus running on a server? Talk to me about all of that when it comes to Automation Anywhere's perspective on MCP.
So first of all, when we say inbound, we are talking about all the requests coming to Automation Anywhere platform. So all of these third-party AI assistants, for example, when they are triggering Automation Anywhere bots, processes, and AI agents, this we refer to as inbound. Outbound is when our goal-based AI agents are using third-party systems, tools, AI agents. We term those requests as outbound interactions. Now, in terms of MCP client and server, they are both equally important, just like a traditional client server architecture. MCP server is where you expose those capabilities. For example, Automation Anywhere MCP server will expose Automation Anywhere bots, processes, agents, etc. as tools which can be called by third party systems. MCP client is where these capabilities are getting consumed. You have these AI assistants which can just host MCP client, and using that they can connect to n number of MCP servers using standard MCP protocol. So that's how you consume those capabilities.
Very well explained, RV. One thing I would add to this, these are all the key architecture components of MCP protocol. And what MCP does very well, it makes it very easy to access, through a server, either the local resources, such as your own database, your own file content, or even remote resources, such as an API that you need to call, some cloud services that you need to access, and so on. So MCP is a very flexible protocol that way.
Talk to me about what a customer of Automation Anywhere needs to develop in order to actually use this MCP server. Is that something they have to build themselves? Is it already built? Do they expose their different automations and agents? How does that actually work in implementation?
So with Automation Anywhere, customers don't have to build an MCP server for accessing any automations that they have built within the A360 platform. We have an MCP server that customers can readily use with security built in, using their control rooms, authentication and authorization protocols, and access that seamlessly in order to call an Automation Anywhere automation from anywhere in their ecosystem of tools and enterprise applications. Similarly, coming soon, we can, while building an AI agent within Automation Anywhere through an MCP client, can talk to any of the MCP server and call corresponding tools and API and protocols using the MCP protocol in order to bring back those results and use that to orchestrate your agent using our Automation Anywhere process orchestration platform.
Ramana, I built my first MCP server back in March just because I wanted to learn how this stuff works. And I've noticed that since then, there's been a lot of these, what I would call MCP indexers or MCP marketplaces, where we see a collection. I'm looking at one called MCP Market that has over 18,000 MCP servers. Suffice it to say, I would assume that not all MCP servers have the same level of support, maintenance, uh, attention to detail when it comes to code quality. I'll say I haven't updated mine regularly at all. So,
Yeah.
talk to me about why Automation Anywhere is different and how customers should be thinking of this when they're thinking about where they're making their MCP investments.
Yeah. The beauty about MCP is they made it very easy to build a server. You can go to a service such as Speakeasy and then auto-generate MCP server. There are so many implementations of a ServiceNow or a Salesforce MCP server. And similarly, you can host MCP servers very easily through, say, Cloudflare or Smithery or so on. That's the beauty of the MCP, but not all MCP servers, as you mentioned rightly so, are created equal. With Automation Anywhere, we took the leap to build an MCP server in a secure and containerized and isolated manner in such a way that you can, on one side, call your automations, the investments that you have done, building tools and automations, very secured manner in the agents that you're building outside of our platform, or use other agents that you have built outside of a platform seamlessly in orchestrating a business process using our platform. So, with security in mind, reusability and scalability, we stand far ahead in terms of the offering that we have on the agent interoperability side.
So, if I'm to summarize what is available now in Automation Anywhere, what's coming, it sounds like MCP Inbound is something that is here today, where you can set up an AI assistant that's able to invoke automations or agents or processes within your Automation Anywhere system. And coming soon is the ability to use MCP tooling from third parties, where you're essentially doing outbound calls from an agent to call an MCP server or service that's hosted either locally or elsewhere, so that your agent essentially has additional tooling beyond what you've built locally. Is that a fair summarization, RV?
Yeah, I think that's fair. In addition, there are lots of other improvements too. For example, running these automation on remote devices, wherein you can have all of the back office automation going up. That capability will soon be available too. And then we have a lot of improvements planned around A2A, which we can talk about too.
So we've spent a lot of time on MCP, and that's really the focus of this episode. I do want to talk just briefly about A2A because I know that's something that's on the way. But RV, talk to me a little bit about what A2A is and how that is different than what we've talked about with MCP.
Yeah, MCP is all about an AI agent connecting with tools, resources, and systems. A2 is more about AI agents talking to other AI agents, discovering other AI agents, connecting with them, collaborating with them in real time to help users achieve their goals. So, in the world of A2A, each of the AI agents will have an agent card, and using that agent card, other AI agents can discover what all capabilities this particular AI agent has got, and then they can use that to interact with this AI agent to hand off tasks to this AI agent. For example, instead of building one big AI agent which does a lot of things and obviously will lead to hallucinations and other problems, you can have specialized AI agents. You can have one AI agent for IT, one AI agent for sales, another AI agent for legal, etc. And all of these AI agents can connect with each other in real time depending on what kind of requests users are making, so that you can construct these workflows in real time. Your AI agents, whoever is calling, whoever is orchestrating, is having high degree of autonomy and can construct the workflow as we go.
Yeah. I'd add a couple more things to it. Where it stands out is its ability to orchestrate and chain a collection of agents in order to achieve a particular goal. Another place where it stands out well is its ability to maintain state and context in a much more superior way, which is more useful for enterprise applications and if enterprise platforms such as Automation Anywhere, because our customers build business processes that are long running, that goes across minutes and hours in many cases. And in order for us to maintain state management and in a more superior way, A2A protocol provides hooks and provides capabilities in order to take it to the next level, and thereby supporting our customers' ability to build multi-agent and dynamic workflows in future.
I love that future vision that you've painted. And A2A is incredibly interesting, something that we will dive deeper into in a future episode, because I think another part of that becomes the evaluations that we're doing to make sure that as we have a probabilistic agent calling another probabilistic agent, that we're still on track with the outcomes that we're expecting. And so I think we'll dive deeper into A2A. I also want to dive deeper into evaluations in future episodes. I want to
Definitely.
kind of round us off here, though. I know that neither of you can predict the future excellently, but where do you see these protocols going in the next 6 to 12 months? I know we've seen some iterations of MCP since its initial release and as it's continued to go on. Where do you see things going from here with a specific Automation Anywhere and agentic process automation lens?
Oh, yeah, this area is evolving a lot, Micah. I mean, every month we see new improvements, new applications, and new enhancements coming. So, a lot of our efforts today is spent in terms of building a better. So, in the world where agents are talking to each other, what we are realizing very quickly is that if an agent calls another agent, which calls another agent, the fidelity becomes very low pretty quickly. So you need to, in the interest of maintaining context, in the interest of not asking repeated questions, you need to have a superior planning service that can very nicely, in a choreographed manner, orchestrate agents across these various enterprise applications. This is an area of keen interest for us and a lot of development. And where I see this is going is in future, you can give out a complex task that can go for hours together, and your agent would be able to go in the background and use all the available tools and agents, talk seamlessly, and come back with a highly accurate and I mean, in an efficient response, or a way to achieve the goal that you have described. That's where things are heading in future.
I would also add to that two of the areas where we see MCP in particular is heading are, first of all, A2A is more about agent calling agent. MCP is about agent calling tools and systems. But now MCP is also adding more support for
Mhm.
interaction among the AI agents. So, for example, the state management that Ramana talked about, the session management, how you can exchange inputs right in the middle of the automation. For example, for the long running processes, a lot of times you need input, you need some clarification in the middle of the process. Right now, MCP is facing some challenges, and that is what is going to get addressed. Now, MCP got donated to Linux Foundation in December, and that is going to make it more neutral. And we expect that now a lot more AI assistants will support MCP capabilities. For example, today, if you look at it, Claude will support all of the MCP capabilities like tool calling, calling resources, templates, but other AI assistants like Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT will stay or restrict themselves with only tool calling. So that is going to change. Their elicitation framework is also due for upgrade. So you can expect a lot more inputs right in the middle of those long running processes.
Very cool. Ramana, what's your advice for enterprise architects or platform teams who want to start building towards a more agentic future and use MCP? Where do they get started?
Yeah, see, this is a great question. I mean, the great thing about MCP, it's very developer focused, and what it enables in terms of architecture is a more flexible, bidirectional way of interoperability where you can easily reuse the tools that you have built in order to build an AI application. So the world is moving towards agent. And when you are starting with your AI application, where you're bringing together multiple tools, systems, and agents, you will quickly run into an issue where things are going to go out of control because of the proliferation of the agents. And if each agent has to write custom code for tool calling and interoperability. So start with interoperability in mind and think about this early on. Use protocols such as MCP and A2A to simplify and bring more flexibility and scale to your businesses as and when you're trying to build agents and taking this capability to automating more and more of your complex business processes.
Perfect. Last question, RV. If someone is listening and wants to experiment more with MCP and specifically Automation Anywhere's MCP server, what's the best way to get started?
Sure, there are a couple of ways. First is try it out in our platform now. MCP inbound capabilities are already available. Secondly, for some of the in progress capabilities that we are still building, you can reach out to us and we can make those available to you in the form of a preview environment or right inside your own environment as a customer beta. So you can try those out. But more importantly, as Ramana said, get started. Think about agent interoperability from the very beginning. Take a maybe small use case, which is high potential, build for that. Think about the future and put all of the right kind of guardrails, governance, security. Everything should be taken care of from the very beginning.
Got it. So everyone is probably using some level of AI assistance today.
Yeah.
The guidance is essentially hook those up to your Automation Anywhere MCP so you can start exposing some of your AI agents, some of your processes, some of your automations, so that those can be essentially tools that are called by the AI assistant to hopefully make yourself and your teams more productive. Guys, I want to thank you so much for joining this episode of Agentic Edge, and I'll look forward to you both coming back to talk about A2A one day. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Agentic Edge podcast. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. It helps more people to find the show and stay on the edge of what's next in enterprise AI and automation. That's all for me, and we'll see you next time on Agentic Edge.